Welcome back, folks, to Calling All Heroes Rising. We're here in our lower bracket semifinals between Fruit Salad and Lotus Rising. These two teams have battled it out all the way to get to this point, and again, their season is on the line in this match. The winner moves on, and the loser is done for our summer season here. It is Rags and Rain bringing you all the action. Rain, this is set up to be a really solid game on our hands.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this one. Of course, like you said, this is do or die. So we're down here in this lower bracket. So both of them looking to get a win here to move on to face off against Sakura Mochi, waiting in that loser's final.
Yeah, and again, both of them have fought so hard just to get this far. We saw Lotus Rising beat out Peach Posse and Fruit Salad taking out Greater Than Colon 3 just a couple days ago here, both looking pretty dominant when they did so. So these are two teams who have really been looking solid in this lower bracket. Despite getting sent down here, they are ready to battle it out, and neither of them wants to go home. So I'm expecting a really solid match. We've seen some enormous highs from both Fruit Salad and Lotus Rising, and even if they win, they're gonna have their work cut out for them against Sakura Mochi.
Yeah, and this is a rematch, right? So looking at that quarterfinal, I mean, it was Fruit Salad that sent Lotus Rising down to this lower bracket in the first place. So Lotus Rising has been fighting through that lower round one and the quarterfinals to get here to this semifinals, and now they're faced off against this opponent that they have lost to once already. We'll see if they can turn it around and try and find a win here by, like you said, Rags, like we just got to see Fruit Salad not too long ago on this broadcast, and they looked absolutely phenomenal against Greater Than Colon 3. So they have the momentum going for them here, but yeah, this is it. This is going to be a tough night for both of these teams, and also waiting to go up against Sakura Mochi, like, that's a really good team too. So like you said, the battle's not over even if you win here tonight.
No, and it certainly is the case that we've seen Fruit Salad get a few more of those 3-0s coming to this point. In Lotus Rising, they had a 3-2, of course, and a 3-1. But looking at this match tonight here, first of all, our map pool coming forward. The first one of the night, folks, is going to be Lijiang Tower. Not at all surprised to see, and of course, such a comfortable pick for many of these teams here. And plenty of versatility, you know, from these comps we've been seeing so far in the meta. In a really fun spot right now, a lot of potential for these bans to really have massive impact on how these teams want to approach each of these submaps.
Yeah, and yeah, mentioning the bans there, kind of since we've moved into the bans, well, here they are. Lijiang Tower Venture gonna be banned out by Fruit Salad. Lotus Rising banning out this Arisa here, so definitely some impactful tanks here on Lijiang Tower. I'm especially thinking Control Room, our submap that's inside. This Arisa and Venture can be absolutely detrimental here. So taking out the Arisa as well, removing that kind of javelin, spear, and the spin, it's a lot of CC that is now going to be gone, which kind of opens up the floor to potentially run a little bit more of a dive composition.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, Lotus Rising, they certainly know from experience that Fruit Salad, with their tank, love to run that Arisa. Fuzzy Dough is very adept at handling that hero in particular. And looking at the team that is around her, of course, we've got Lyran and Hostile for your DPS line, Fuzzy Dough on that tank, but no Arisa this map, sadly. And Mothfia and Banana Milk for your backline. This Fruit Salad roster has been doing some serious work here, an absolute executioner in the lower bracket, and they are not at all going to take a loss lying down.
No, and I feel like, yeah, it's Fuzzy Dough. I feel like last time we saw this team on screen, we were seeing her name a lot. The javelins from Fuzzy Dough, absolutely incredible. It felt like she must have had almost a 100% kind of accuracy rate on that. So seeing the Arisa being banned out map one, yeah, not a shocker to me, but it is going to mean that, of course, Fuzzy Dough's going to have this option in the following maps to potentially play it. Now let's take a look over at Lotus Rising. We are going to have Vikarin and Flaming Potato, the DPS here. Stelbell hovering that Wrecking Ball. I do know that she has a nasty Wrecking Ball. And then Snow and Queen being the support line here. The support Torbjorn, you can always trust.
Yes, definitely not at all a fake out. That is certainly what we're going to be seeing coming out of the gates here. 3 DPS, who knew you could still do that in Overwatch 2? But yeah, an excellent roster out from Lotus Rising. And like you said, Rain, I would love to see a bit of Wrecking Ball here to play spoiler to these compositions that we're going to be seeing on the other side here from Fruit Salad.
Yeah, actually, I think that seeing the bans that kind of came out here, I definitely think that there's the potential here to run this Wrecking Ball composition. Of course, in this kind of current meta. I'm saying meta very loosely because nothing's really settled down yet, but the Wrecking Ball, very, very strong, especially a lot of teams are kind of opting to run this double flex DPS where you have the Tracer and the Genji. So following up on kind of those pile drives from the Wrecking Ball can be very, very easy because you have so much mobility to kind of get in there and be really, really impactful. As we are going to be starting out on Market for the first sub map. You know, Fruit Salad having a little thought here. Covering the Symmetra, I mean, Rags, that definitely is something we've seen, especially here on this submap.
Oh yeah, they looked so comfortable getting a quick teleport in to Night Market here and just holding down that objective. And once they hold down that first control of Night Market here, it is so hard to dislodge the Symmetra comp, especially if they stick with some of these picks here. We'll see if they actually are the ones coming out. I'm curious to see the support lines on both sides here. Really, no bans, of course, on the support role, so a full reign of that roster to be gained for both teams for this first map here. And it is a mirror on either side, so we do have Snow and Queen Bee on this Lucio, Kiri, and of course Banana Milk and Mafia mirroring that on the opposite side. Fruit Salad, they are teleporting to the objective already present when Lotus Rising appears. Stelbell eating a bunch of damage, but is Banana Milk gonna get the first kill onto Tiny Shiny? That Echo, wings clipped almost immediately, diving in onto the point here, having to deal with this hold pressure coming through from the Symmetra comp alongside the immense pressure that Hostile's putting on this Reaper. We've been seeing a lot of Reaper at all levels of play, and for good reason. Such a lethal component to these rosters, especially with those updated perks.
Yeah, the updated perks, and playing with the Zarya too. The Zarya Reaper composition used to be super, super popular, and it's because you're able to get so much charge on this Zarya. The Reaper able to get very aggressive with that bubble, and then you get the damage kind of as well going over onto the Zarya. Stelbell on this Wrecking Ball trying to find a bit of an opening, trying to find a split onto Fruit Salad.
Yeah, Fuzzito is maintaining control here with those bubbles. Excellent use of them, trying to put them mostly, as you're saying, onto Hostile, really enabling that Reaper to power forward. And of course, feeding your Zarya the entire time, and Hostile is just having nothing to do with this team rolling all the way back to spawn here. Lotus Rising just getting picked apart one by one. No ults online for either side just yet here. The results from Fruit Salad have just been that dominant.
Yeah, Fruit Salad's doing a really good job not kind of getting distracted by this Wrecking Ball composition, right? This Lotus Rising team, they want to kind of split up Fruit Salad, bring somebody's attention away, and then you kind of isolate that person, you find that kill. But Fruit Salad playing this Reaper Zarya composition, playing very, very close, right? You have Lyran on this sim, you want to stay close to this point.
Mafio's about to have the beat online, but gets taken down by those sticky bombs from the Echo of Tiny Shiny. That is a brutal start for Fruit Salad, but they still go with the commit there of the Kiriko ultimate. That Kitsune Rush leveled over the objective and is able to divvy on it in dividends. So well done for Fruit Salad to keep alive and know that they still had the win condition even with a person down. And Lotus Rising, I mean, they didn't get a chance to spend the ultimate, so that's a win in their book, but we're ticking up to 80% for Fruit Salad.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Fuzzito's gonna have this grab here. You can basically just grab Lotus Rising in this choke point. Now, yes, Tiny Shiny does have this copy ready to go, but who are you gonna put the copy out onto? Honestly, would probably like to see it go over onto the Reaper. I think you'll be able to build up the Blossom pretty quick, and where this is an overtime fight, you want something that's gonna help you directly on the point.
Pulse Bomb out from Kieran doesn't find a kill, but does manage to get Mafia out. And again, that beat is not online for this fight here. Fruit Salad are having such a tough time keeping that Lucio alive. Easy first dive target for Lotus Rising. And Lyran falling shortly thereafter does mean that they're really down here. That beat comes through, does land onto 3, but with all the front line, essentially the DPS of Fruit Salad gone here, it's going to be a tough order for Fuzzy Dough to alive, lift the rest of the team here on the objective. Fruit Salad still managing to get kills here, just supports and tank, but just a few moments longer, and it does end up that Fuzzy Dough falls down. Tiny Shiny proving to be quite an executioner on this Echo, and Lotus Rising can breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah, now Snow did get taken down there, but as the Lucio gonna get back into the fight fairly quickly here. The beat, the only ultimate that Lotus Rising are working with, and you're definitely gonna want that because Hostile does have this Blossom coming online. Been talking about how these bubbles are kind of going over onto the Reaper to really enable him. And well, yeah, the Death Blossom plus bubble combo, it's gonna be hard for Lotus Rising, but Queen Bee, things off well for them.
Yeah, Lyran getting immediately found out on the high ground there. Not at all where you want to find yourself on the receiving end of a kunai there. And Tiny Shiny in that skybox is just so able to focus down and mark everyone entering from Fruit Salad. No one really gets a chance to get to the objective without her say so. And Queen Bee is again finding these kills in these fights here. Not just the opening pick, but the one following there. Lyran not able to really do much at all. Stepping out of spawn, yet again getting taken down. No chance to build up much more ult charge. Fruit Salad, they still have plenty to work with in the ult bank, but being down permanently a single member is quite tough getting here onto the objective, but we still have Stelbell trying to lead the charge and put everyone forward from Lotus Rising. The point does get flipped into Fruit Salad's favor though, so no percentage ticking up for Lotus Rising. They have to put toes back on the point. They are able to do so before things go horribly wrong, but it turns out they will anyway. Hostile there with the Death Blossom is beautiful, takes Valkyrian immediately out, and Stelbell can roll around all she wants, but it's just not enough to keep Fruit Salad at bay. The rest of the team is back and in full force, and this is exactly what you want to see. Lyran back here on this Tracer just to play Gate Guard, and it turns out you don't even need that much more. Perfectly done from Fruit Salad on that re-engage.
I like the way that Fruit Salad plays that. Instead of trying to take this fight out in courtyard, you just everybody walks towards the point, right? You have the Blossom ready to go, you have the Grav ready to go. Force a fight on the point. It's going to make it very, very hard for Lotus Rising on this kind of dive composition to really win that out, especially against ultimates. So really well played for Fruit Salad to recognize where they were going to kind of have the best advantage there and opt to not take a fight out in the open with a Wrecking Ball. Now we are going to move over to Control Center, so the more brawl-favored submap of Lijiang and Lotus Rising going to respect that, move Stelbell over onto Zarya. Tiny Shiny's going to move over on the Mei, potentially. We're seeing the Sim Hubbard here, potentially, just to get kind of that TP out, but I think Valkyrian on this, Cassidy also going to be very, very strong. Of course, Cassidy's going to be able to put out a lot of pressure, a lot of damage, and with Lyran still on this Tracer, it's going to be able to control the flank really well on this Cassidy.
Yeah, love the Mei here, Control Center in particular, especially alongside the Zarya. Unfortunately, Fuzzy gets the better of Stelbell early on here, but Valkyrian is there to clean up the opposing tank. So each team here without their Zarya, it is just pure damage coming forward here. If Banana Milk is able to clean up Valkyrian, does mean that the rest of Fruit Salad is able to hold down control of the objective here to start off. They will get the first control, but yeah, a bit of a hairy first fight here, and a good amount of ult charge being built by the Cassidy player on Lotus Rising. So expect to see some excellent synergy between that Cassidy and Mei.
Yeah, Valkyrian doing great here, and especially with the Mei, you really want to split these targets off and then burn them down. That's the nice thing about running into a Zarya, is once those bubbles are forced out, you can really destroy the HP pool of the Zarya.
Yeah, between the beams and the Mei Endothermic Blaster, just so much damage coming out that you really can't do much about once the bubbles are gone. Finding Lyran out early again, though, it seems that Lotus Rising knows exactly what they want to find. The immediate squishy target to go down is the first one they will take in any of these fights here. Really feels like Valkyrian does have Lyran's number, and Fuzzy Doe gets taken down to a bit of a self-damage there, and the rest of Lotus Rising still alive here on the point. Lyran is just sort of sneaking around, trying to find an assassinate kill on a re-engage, but Lotus Rising finally flipped into their own favor with ults coming online for Fruit Salad.
Yeah, exactly. This Blossom from Hostile going to be really big. Of course, we have this Kitsune Rush online for Banana Milk as well. Queen Bee lagging a little bit behind, so if Fruit Salad move quickly, you're going to have the advantage there, but you're going to have to deal with this Deadeye from Valkyrian and the Tiny Shiny Blizzard as well.
Yeah, potentially even comboed together. What a devastating combo those two can be here. Blizzard ready to go. Don't even need it in this fight. Although that being said, losing 2 on the back of taking out the opposing tank is not quite the trade you'd like to see here. Lotus Rising is still trying to maintain control here. Tiny Shiny point blank icicled to Hostile's dome, but gets taken down in immediate trade by Banana Milk as well. And it looks like Fruit Salad, I mean, against the opening pick, you know, Fuzzy Doe falling immediately as the fight started off, they still power forward onto the objective, not at all afraid to start a person down.
Yeah, that's really impressive kind of confidence in the team to go into a fight without your tank, and nice timing on the Blossom. It kind of turns everybody from Lotus Rising. Doesn't necessarily find the kills, but it does take a lot of resources away from that front line, and that's when Lyran is really able to kind of find the opening kills there. Now, Lotus Rising coming back into this with a Grav to work with.
Yeah, so many ults available for both teams here. The beat comes out in answer to the grab. Snow answers for it, but I don't think that beat landed on anybody but her and Valkyrian. So not really a ton of value to be gained for Lotus Rising there. Hostile does take Valkyrian out as well. So again, at the end of the day, one beat certainly got a lot more value than the other. And it looks as though Fruit Salad, although that being said, Tiny Shiny is here cleaning up those remaining members. It's just not enough though, unfortunately. Despite the heroics, most members of Fruit Salad are still kicking around at the objective here. You just have Fuzzy Doe powering up so much, and the second she's got those bubbles back online, there's not much that Lotus Rising can do.
No, and Lotus Rising, I mean, somebody has to go touch the point. Oh, you do have Stelbell that swapped over onto the ball, will end up getting this contest, but you need to try to find your way in. You need to find space to use this Deadeye from Valkyrian.
Lyran down first, but the Cassidy has to play so carefully. Does get a kill into Mafia with that Deadeye. Beautiful coordination there, finding just the right angle to stay safe from Fuzzy Doe, who is clearly hunting her down. Hostile falls as well, so really a bit of advantage here to Lotus Rising. That being said, as long as Fuzzy Doe is alive, you cannot count Fruit Salad out. And honestly, even with her down, you still cannot guarantee a win. We do have a little bit of a spin to win action coming out from Stelbell, just trying to stall a few moments longer. But the overtime moves have been burning them so long that just when you're a moment off the objective, Lotus Rising unfortunately let it slip through their fingers there, and Fruit Salad will take the second round and the entire first map.
Nice back and forth between these two teams. Fruit Salad definitely looking maybe a little bit cleaner when it comes to these kind of scrappy fights. They're pulling together really well and focusing down the same targets. I think that Lotus Rising, which is also just kind of the nature of playing this wrecking ball so often, is sometimes it feels like you really have to kind of take those 1v1s kind of off in a corner, which sometimes definitely will work out for you, but against a team like Fruit Salad, so put together, not letting themselves get split off very easily, a little bit tricky for Lotus Rising to kind of adapt to that, find the advantage.
Yeah, we saw they were able to find those opening picks so often, and yet they really could only capitalize on those and convert just only about half of the time, honestly, in these fights here. It was just so difficult to dislodge the rest of Fruit Salad, who really seemed to feel that even if they're playing 4v5, that's not defeat. That's still go button territory. That's still when you let loose with a Kitsune Rush or Death Blossom, something to sort of turn the tide in your favor. And honestly, it felt like half the time it worked out for them. So you'll take those odds any day of the week, honestly, when you feel like you have enough confidence in your roster to run, with a single body down. And Lotus Rising, they just didn't have that staying power, unfortunately. The longer the fights went on, they were really sort of finding their pokes, their picks, but it just was not enough the longer the fights drug on.
Yeah, exactly. You really want to be cleaning up these fights a lot quicker on, control point. Obviously, if you are not in control of the point when the fight is going on, the longer it goes, it's just really the worst for you. So unfortunately for Lotus Rising, not getting that win on Lijiang, but they are going to have the opportunity to take us to the next map. They get to pick what type we go to as well. So everything on the board except for control right now. And, the Orisa ban now not going to be able to be played anymore. So, I mean, we could absolutely see Fuzzy Doe kind of move back over to this Orisa. So Lotus Rising need to keep that in mind while they're picking.
Yeah, and very clearly she's not a one-trick pony, pardon the Orisa pun. Still has plenty of versatility, looking very solid on that Zarya, especially alongside having Hostile on that Reaper. Just excellent synergy, from the Dawn eras of Overwatch between those two heroes in particular, and looking better than ever now in Fruit Salad's hands. So looking at our second map, it looks like we are being taken to Atlas. Our flashpoint for our second map of the series, Lotus Rising, want to head to our newest map in Overwatch here. So whether that is them feeling a bit more confident on this particular map, or they just do not want to run anything that's going to be tried and tested for Fruit Salad here. They want to really throw a wrench in those, in the gears that Fruit Salad have churning to such great efficiency at this point. But it has to be said that suiting their playstyle, if Lotus Rising wants to keep running this Wrecking Ball pick, if they're allowed to, perhaps that ban might come through before the series is done. But yeah, I could really see it suiting their hit and run playstyle, allowing them to poke and find those picks off on these flank angles. So many angles on each of these points here on Atlas.
Yeah, that's really it. Atlas, the newest Flashpoint map here, it has so many corners, so many like kind of dead ends almost, where anybody could kind of be hiding, be lurking. And I'm also thinking to the Venture ban that we had come through on Lijiang Tower with Venture back in the mix. I do think Atlas is a fantastic map to play Venture, similar to kind of the playstyle that you play the Reaper, where you're kind of like hiding, lurking, waiting until somebody comes through, and then you will just hit them with a whole lot of burst damage. Well, we do have the bans ready to go. Lotus Rising, recognizing that Fuzzy Doe could potentially be a problem here, gonna ban out the Zarya, and then Fruit Salad banning out the Wuyong here. Definitely have been seeing a lot of Wuyong, I think especially on these flash maps, running that Wuyong Kiriko. So taking that out of the mix does probably mean that we're going to end up back on that Curie Lucio backlining.
Yeah, despite how, like you're saying, Rain, how ubiquitous Wuyong has been kind of at all levels of play right now, Fruit Salad have not really seemed to be that interested in running compositions. They really want to run what they know already in terms of their backlines. That Kyrie Lucio is just such a staple for so many different compositions and so many teams already. But yeah, so sensing very much that Lotus Rising I haven't seen them play a whole ton here, but they very much have a team comp that works very well with Wuyong. So a really solid ban to get out of their hands here. And that Zarya, clearly it looked as though Fuzzido was winning that mirror matchup. But of course, with the Orisa back in play, I mean, what more do you really need for the tank of Fruit Salad?
Yeah, that's really it. I definitely do think that Zarya is pretty impactful here on these flashpoint maps as well. So the Orisa is going to have maybe a little bit harder of a time kind of like pivoting and getting the peel in that a Zarya would be able to. But we have the spears that Fuzzido can hit, so that it might be all the peel you need is, yeah, Fruit Salad, okay, we're rolling around with the Mercy Lucio. But Lotus Rising, I mean, Venture back in the mix. Tiny Shiny thinking she might play some Venture. Stelbell, of course, on that Wrecking Ball, and then Vakerin over on the Tracer here. So again, I think this is a great composition, especially like we said, for the style that Lotus seems to kind of be preferring. This is a hit and run as Fruit Salad have locked in, there we go, on what they're going to run out on. It is going to be Fuzzy Doe moving over onto the Orisa. That double flex DPS coming in for Fruit Salad as well. So this Tracer Genji, this 1-2 combo, very, very deadly. But with all the mobility on the side of Lotus Rising, Fruit Salad are going to have to try and force out one of these cooldowns, whether it's the recall from the Tracer or maybe the TP from the Kiriko, but you need to look for that before you go in for a hard hit.
Yeah, Snow and Mothia have to play a bit more carefully here. It's very clear that they are the targets here from each side's DPS, but Banana Milk is the first one we've seen so often here, able to find these opening picks onto the opposing DPS. Vakirin just not able to, unfortunately, get a handle on that Kiriko, falling down for her trouble there. But on the objective, you are doing your very best to lock down this Wrecking Ball piloted to perfection here by Stelbell. But unfortunately, you can spin and run all you want, but you're just being hounded down by all members of Fruit Salad here. Banana Milk, unfortunately, falling down to the back end of this as Tiny Shiny is able to get a Venture cleanup there onto the Kiriko. Hostile also falling does mean that Fruit Salad are quite a disadvantage here, even though they've gained first control of the objective. Stelbell is still alive, has not gone down, despite seeming having the control and focus of the entire remaining members of Fruit Salad here. That being said, Lotus Rising are going to want to get on the objective here, so Mafia falling down with Fuzzy Doe the only one left here on the objective does really signal that Fruit Salad probably have their moments here numbered on this first point just for a few seconds longer. Finally goes down at about 50%. Lotus Rising take control, but it was not pretty and it was not clean.
It was so messy. I mean, I really don't know how Stelbell managed to stay alive through that, but she was giving so much value to her team just by doing it. I mean, unfortunately, Lyran chasing the Wrecking Ball around does mean that Vakerin's not really going to have anybody to mark her over on the Tracer. So Vakerin's allowed to just basically run free there and get some really nice setups cross with Tiny Shiny on this Venture.
Oh, yeah, the Pulse Bomb kill onto Vakerin, just unfortunately stepping around at the exact wrong moment there. Lyran looked like they were in a bit of trouble, but just able to keep alive. Mafia, though, falling down. Tiny Shiny, again, proven to be such an assassin here on these flex DPS picks here. Whether the Echo or the Venture, still plenty valuable either way. As we're starting to see ultimates used here, we do have the Rush coming out on both sides here. Queen Bee's lasting just a little bit longer, starting off just a bit later here. As the Minefield is laid over a few segments here of the objective. It looks like Lotus Rising are able to push everyone from Fruit Salad off the point here, and with control ticking up into almost 100%, I don't know if there's going to be a chance for Fruit Salad to touch. This first point is going to go Lotus Rising's way.
Yeah, not too bad. Really nice Kitsune rush there. They went down onto the point from Queen Bee. Lotus Rising able to kind of keep Queen up on the high ground, putting down heals, and then everybody else kind of just brawling out on the point. And now, I mean, you still have the beat from Snow. Mafia is going to be able to kind of match that beat, which is going to be really important with Tiny Shiny having this Tectonic Shock ready to go. But, I mean, Mafia's got to get it online quickly. You really want to be able to get this better beat.
Queen Bee falls, and a Queen on the other side as Fruit Salad. Fuzzy Doe has swapped over to the Junker Queen here. Unfortunately, does get the kill onto Tiny Shiny, but that is going to be faint praise when the rest of the team falls down around her. Lotus Rising just able to hold out here, using this chaos to their advantage. It's the absolute mayhem being caused by Stelbell right now. The engage from Fruit Salad was clean, but the second they were inside of the objective, Lotus Rising just picked them apart and played 1v1.
Yeah, I was kind of saying how on Lijiang Tower, it felt like Fruit Salad was really winning out in these kind of scrappy fights, doing a really good job kind of pulling together. But now, Lotus Rising, I mean, now you're on a map. Stelbell can play this Wrecking Ball. Tiny Shiny on the Venture as well, looking really, really good. But Fruit Salad, you got the blade! Oh, the beat just in time to keep Hostile alive.
Yeah, Lyran, though, does not benefit from that beat and still facing so much harassment out from Stelbel. The Hunter has now become the hunted. Hostile still has to play a bit more carefully here. We've seen pretty regularly in some of these matches, sometimes the first target here is Hostile. Just a little bit squishier, a little bit left alone when not immediately surrounded by the rest of the team there. As we do have the mines come down over the field, Stelbel is able to force the rest of Fruit Salad away. They did flip the point back into their favor for just a few moments here, ticking up past 20% for a slight bit longer. Finally, Fuzzy Dough falls. That pile driver come through from Stelbel, and they will gain control yet again. Here's Lotus Rising. I mean, they've looked pretty comfortable here. Not really too troubled.
No, I'm absolutely loving this look from Lotus Rising. You're gonna have everybody kind of set up on their own angles. You're waiting for Fruit Salad to come in. You're waiting for Fuzzy Dough on this Junker Queen to kind of commit before you use any of your cooldowns. And at that point, I mean, it's just too hard for the Junker Queen to kind of turn around and get the peel in. Now Hostile is going to move over onto the Reaper. We'll see if that's going to be able to combo with this Junker Queen a little better.
Afraid it might be a little bit too little too late here as the Pulse Bomb icing on the cake. Just a bunch of damage coming their way. Fruit Salad fall just moments after the bomb drops. Tiny Shiny cleaning up Hostile on the back end of it, as well as Lyran there, and Vacurin teaming up as the DPS line for Lotus Rising rolls over the remaining members of Fruit Salad, and they are now at map point here. Just one more flashpoint needed for Lotus Rising to take us and tie up the series.
Yeah, and that next one is going to be Bazaar, which for Lotus Rising, nice and close. You're going to be able to get set up first here. Now, you don't really have a whole lot of ultimates to work with. You play a little bit longer of a fight. Tiny Shiny's going to be able to get that Tectonic Shock online. But honestly, if you're Lotus, you just want to take a dry fight here. See if you can get something out of Fruit Salad or, you know, just win the fight outright. That works.
I mean, Lyran builds the Pulse Bomb and just gets immediately obliterated by Tiny Shiny, who's just waiting, seeming to know exactly where they're going to be at all times here. The Lotus Rising have full control over these back alleys here, and it turns out that Atlas was a very well-practiced choice on their part here. They are still capping the objective while holding off the remaining members of Fruit Salad, who are just trying to find a chance to engage here. They're finally built up to these ultimates as these hero swaps have come over their direction here, so look to find that Rampage, trying to get some value, although with as fast as Lotus Rising are, that's going to be tall order.
Yeah, I don't know how you get value with this Rampage. I mean, Fruit Salad's going first as well. That Kitsune rush, and Tiny Shiny tries to use that Tectonic Shock, but it gets shut down.
Yeah, that Shock was a strong start, but just gets taken down before she can really get full value from it there. Fuzzy Dough is able to hold on to the Rampage for now, but with the mines over the objective, that is more time being bought for Lotus Rising. And again, this is Flashpoint, not Control. These tick up so much faster. Any time bought is doubly valuable here. And yeah, the mines end up taking down Fuzzy Dough. So yeah, just so deadly. You really want to touch the objective, but you cannot get a chance to do so. The floor is lava. It turns out it's not quite as bad as when the floor is made of mines.
No, that's right. Tiny Shiny dying late here. Fruit Salad looking like they're going to be able to clean things up and get the flip here. But that's a really good percentage here for Lotus Rising for their first fight. Coming back into it, you got the beat from Snow. Vakeren's going to have this Pulse Bomb as well. But Fruit Salad did well to hold on to that Rampage and the Blossom as well from Hostile. Now it's a matter of trying to corral Lotus Rising into a place where you're going to get value from this. So honestly, from Fruit Salad, I think that you should really just kind of back up, play for the point here, because you want Lotus Rising to all be in one spot for these ults.
Pulse Bomb comes through from Vaker and takes Mothvia down to half. Let's go with the barrier. Lands on everybody but Banana Milk, who's back here on the Moira now, trying to get a little bit more group healing and find out these very tricky, squishy targets, always zipping around like annoying gnats. But perhaps the gnats are the biggest bites you've ever seen here. Fruit Salad's still in control of the point. Still holding on to this Rampage for Fuzzy Dough, and Lotus Rising, I mean, they've got to make their aggression here soon, or if they're not, you know, they might get sent to another Flashpoint. They want to clean this up as fast as they can, but of course they do have plenty of room to work with here, considering they did win the first 2 points here. You do have both support ults coming out from Lotus Rising, the beat not landing onto all members of the team, so Fruit Salad might be able to swing that to their advantage. Unfortunately, Banana Milk gets taken down, no chance to build up towards that Coalescence, and we have trades happening on either side. These fights are getting messy the further we get into the map here. Lotus Rising wants to clean this up here and now. We're 99% for Fruit Salad, but it looks as though Lotus are putting control back into their own favor. Fuzzy Dough is still alive, but just for a few moments longer. The rest of Lotus Rising looking pretty comfortable here. I don't think there's been a fight and a half that Stelbel has not had the mines ready to go.
It's pretty terrifying, especially on these flashpoints, right? Everybody's taking a fight on the point. The mines have just been detrimental over time now, and Lotus Rising gonna have to deal with Hostile on the Reaper, but otherwise, looking pretty good to clean this.
Yeah, back up to 99 themselves. Of course, they were not too far from that. Gets stuck at the very end of it there. Lyran might have just bought a few more seconds for Fruit Salad, and that might be all you need, but still gets taken down. Tiny Shiny is alive and kicking, and there's just not enough time to get back to the objective here. And done it in 3. That is one of the faster Flashpoint maps I've seen in quite some time here. Well played by Lotus Rising, taking the second map of the series, proving that their choice was very well tailored to their strengths, tying it up 1-1.
Yeah, I really like the bounce back here from Lotus. I think that taking it to Atlas, which not only maybe it's more practice for you, but a lot of teams aren't really favoring this this Flashpoint map specifically, right? A lot of teams kind of opting to go over to New Junk City as the other map, and maybe just not as practiced on it. And like you said, the Atlas point worked, or the map worked great for the way that they wanted to play. Stelbell on that Wrecking Ball was so scary. She lived forever, and because she was never back in the spawn room, she's just constantly doing a bit of damage, constantly having those mines, able to put them all over the point, and there isn't really any kind of like a mine sweeper that's going to be happening when you're running that kind of Junker Queen, the Reaper. You know, you can maybe throw out some shotguns, but it's just not really worth it. So looking good, Lotus Rising. I'm very impressed, and I think that they adjusted to the way that Fruit Salad was playing.
Yeah, clearly had the room to work with for their composition, whereas, of course, on Lijiang Tower, both on Night Market and especially on Control Center, you're just so penned in by these narrow corridors, even the objectives, despite having a large skybox on Control Center, you still only have so much room to work with here. You're more of a pinball in a machine there, whereas instead, here on Atlas, you've just got so much room to work with, so many avenues to play around, and so many health packs on these Flashpoint maps that you can just hoover up all the way around, and like you said, Rain, just not seeming to die. Just so difficult to take this ball down unless she is directly on the objective and trying to sustain there. But even then, you've got the mines to contend with. You've got Vacurin, who seemed to be getting the better of Lyran in these sort of Tracer 1v1s here. And as we called out in the middle of the map there, when your Tracer is just stuck hounding down a Wrecking Ball the entire time, the backline is entirely unbothered. There's nothing to stop them from healing each other up, keeping the DPS, and getting some kills of their own.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the support line. Honestly, for both of these teams, I've been very, very impressed with the flex supports, especially how many kills they're getting in, how many opening kills Banana Milk has had on that Kiriko. Very impressive stuff. As we have our third map all selected here, Fruit Salad are going to be taking us push map in. Gonna be going over on to Esperanza here, so I am very curious to see what these bans are gonna be, Rags, because I do think that Esperanza is a fantastic map to play Wrecking Ball. Oh, yeah.
So fantastic, Rain, that Fruit Salad have said, in fact, we will not be having that. No thanks. You can take that one with you. Do not let the door hit you on the way out. But Lotus Rising has banned out the Lucio. Okay, so what a common hero pick on this map here does mean that any speed you have is going to have to come from an alternate source here. Expect to see some Juno, and of course Wuyong back in the mix for this map here. So if Lotus Rising feel really good on this brand new support hero, that certainly is an option available to you. Fruit Salad, though, they have not, we've seen run a whole lot of these Wuyong compositions. They really have defaulted towards this Kiri Lucio. I'm curious to see exactly how they want to adapt to it here. I mean, whether we get something crazy, I mean, not that crazy, but like a Brig Juno, for example, or even like a Wuyong Kiriko we've seen use good effect at some levels of play here.
Yeah, that's exactly. I am definitely expecting a Wuyong Kiriko if Lotus Rising have the Wuyong in their kind of pool, and I think that if you're going to be playing in a map where you've banned out Lucio, the hero that Fruit Salad, you know, Mafia has been fantastic on the Lucio, but the thing of banning out the Lucio if you want to play the Wuyong is that you're taking away that kind of walk potential for the team. Wuyong, of course, is going to be able to get a lot of kind of poke damage in. You want to be able to keep a little bit of distance on Wuyong. That's also why he has this kind of like get out of jail free card, his little tidal wave. But if you take away the Lucio, that means that your Wuyong's going to be a whole lot safer here. And we've seen how, I mean, we're literally just talking about how dangerous these supports have been, how often they're showing up in the kill feed. Well, Wuyong, amazing damage potential. So I mean, Creepy is hovering it right now. And then yeah, Fruit Salad, you kind of mentioned it, like if you don't have the Lucio and you need the speed, you basically have to play Juno. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do end up with Mafia at least on the
Yeah, it's certainly not a comp that we've seen a lot of from Fruit Salad here, so I'm curious to see exactly how practiced and how comfortable they feel on it. Lucio bans are not terribly common here. Most teams like to run Lucio, so like essentially you're shooting yourself in the foot by trying to damage your enemy's chance to use that hero. But we do see the Kiri Juno. All right, so this is
Mm.
exactly sort of the flex you'd have to go with if you do not have access to that Lucio here. But the Will Young out from Queen B here on Lotus Rising. I
Mm.
expect to see, as you were saying, Rain, so much damage here from these little water balls coming through, especially once they, as seems to always be the case, get that tri-ball perk.
Mm.
As it just seems, I've never seen the other one, I think, in play. It's just always that one coming through here. But Fuzzy Dough is back here on this Orisa, trying to lead the charge on this signature hero pick. But Lotus Rising are the ones to dive directly on top of Fruit Salad here. Stelbell has come out on the Diva, an excellent pick here on Esperanza in particular, especially dealing with this immense high ground potential here, just in a way that not even Wrecking Ball seems to be able to access, just having such
Mm.
an excellent flow to find your enemies wherever they're hiding.
Yeah, I think the Diva pairs really well with the Wu Yang as well because, like we said, all that damage kind of coming in from the Wu Yang. Diva has excellent kind of cleanup potential here. You pair that with Vakerin on this Tracer, and it's just going to be really hard for, I'm thinking Mafia specifically on this Juno. I mean, yes, you have a little bit of mobility here, but otherwise, once those jet boots are out, that's basically it. You're a sitting duck, so it's going to be a lot of pressure on Lyran, on the Cassidy to kind of be this peel for the supports.
Yeah, and we're seeing already Stelbell just diving directly into the backline, just getting as much chip damage as she possibly can here, whether that's with the boots, whether that's with the melees. Unfortunately, biting off a bit more than she can chew here, as it turns out Fruit Salad are able to just rotate around up that staircase enough to lure the Diva in and take out the mech there, finishing off, yeah, just Stelbell remaining about to get back into the mech, has to be said. Just be aware and conscious of that. We are holding Snow captive here for a moment longer.
No.
Mafia does get that clean up. Stelbell is, no, right, so back at spawn there, was back in the mech, my mistake. But yeah, so Fruit Salad looking pretty comfy there, holding that one to their potential, but they're in a good spot to match pace here with Lotus Rising.
Yeah, Terra Surge ready to go here. Looks like Fuzzy Dough wants to maybe kind of hold this archway, but I mean, Lotus Rising are able to come out from so many different ways here. Then the bomb ready to go for Stelbell, so she can just play aggressive because she can just get that remake.
Yeah, Banana Milk does manage to get out, but Mafia not get that same benefit, unfortunately. Ult's coming through from Fruit Salad. They're still committing. As we've said, a person down means they go. Press Q and hope that they hold out in the end. Lyran, unfortunately, gets taken down on the back end of this fight here. Stelbell cleans up Banana Milk as well. And unfortunately, all of those ults spent out from Fruit Salad. That was 3 used there after they lost Mafia, and they got nothing for their trouble. Lotus Rising holding on to a solid slate of support ults here, with Tiny Shiny about to have Titanic Shock as well.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Fruit Salad. I mean, now you just have this Deadeye, which, I mean, yes, it's a zoning ult, but also against the Diva, it's just going to be really, you're just probably not going to find any value from this. Tiny Shiny lurking, waiting, excellent trigger discipline. She's just waiting to get this ultimate online. And again, Lyran doesn't notice her either.
Unfortunately, no chance to do so as Banana Milk, again, this assassin here on the Kiriko. Oh, yeah, just facing so much with that D-Matrix, but the rest of Fruit Salad are there to defend the Cassidy. And Stelbell does get the benefit of that Tidal Blast, and with that, gets back into the mech, lands on top of Lyran. My goodness, what a series of unfortunate events for that Cassidy. What looked like it could be the tide turning in their favor, unfortunately, was the exact wrong tide coming out from the Wu Yang being played by Lotus Rising. Well played there. Support all the way to the back pocket here for Stelbell. Just able to rely on the back line so effectively here.
Yeah, the Kiriko Wu Yang, I mean, there's a reason that a lot of teams are playing this right now, and the nice thing is that you can build that Tidal Blast pretty darn quickly as long as you're putting the damage in, especially like you said, once you get up to that major perk and you have the triple orb, that's so much damage. It's all about just kind of building up to your ult here, and that pairs really nicely because the Kiriko can also really play that style, but Fruit Salad coming back in, a crucial ult on the board. It's gonna be this orbit from Mafia. You just gotta make sure that Lotus Rising aren't able to just kite out of it.
Yeah, as solid as we've seen Fuzzy Dough on this Orisa, unfortunately, Stelbell's Diva feels like it's the exact counter that you need to handle this immense pressure that can come out of the Orisa. Even the control aspects of it just doesn't get a ton of value against this Diva, especially played to the degree that Stelbell is. Lotus Rising, they didn't have to spend anything to clean that fight up there. That early kill onto the tank of Fruit Salad, everyone else falling down afterwards. I mean, Fruit Salad, they're kind of coming apart at the seams here on Esperanza.
Yeah, okay, some swaps happening to try and make something of this. It is going to be the Juno Brig backline now. Lyran, they're going to move over onto the Reaper here. I think one of the big issues that Fuzzy Doe's having here is that Stelbell is able to eat up a lot of the healing that was coming through from the support. So I think Mafia moving over onto the Brigade is going to help with that.
Yeah, that Terra Surge is able to section everyone from Lotus Rising in, but not able to clean up any kills so far. Snow falls dangerously low, but is able to get away with her life intact, about to build up to that ultimate, and Tiny Shiny popping the first ult for Lotus Rising here. That Tectonic Shock gets a nut amount of damage coming through as Mafia gets taken down by the Pulse Bomb there. Just so much burst damage between those two DPS ults for Lotus Rising that there's only so much the poor Brig can do. That shield, unfortunately, does not do nearly as much as it once used to, I remember. But Lotus Rising still have 2 ults ready to go here, and they have not stopped rolling with this bot. It's continued moving all the way into the spawn here for Fruit Salad, and they don't have any ults to work with here. Banana Milk is the only one even close to it. Lyran trying to build towards the Death Blossom here, but unfortunately everyone just gets picked apart one by one, and even on their map pick, Fruit Salad are falling down here like a set of dominoes as Lotus Rising pummeling all the way forward here into the spawn doors, and there's only so much you can do against such wanton aggression here, and Lotus Rising have put themselves in the driver's seat, leading in the series now 2-1.
Yeah, they have definitely found their footing here, this Lotus Rising team. Now, Fruit Salad, you know, looking pretty good at the beginning, but I think that Lotus Rising, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. This D.Va is really just kind of countering out the Orisa gameplay from Fuzzy Doe, right? You're able to just kind of play around the Orisa. You don't necessarily need to take that fight head on, especially on Esperanza, where there's so much high ground to kind of control, and you can use this movement from the D.Va to basically just, you know, walk onto the back line. And then you have Tiny Shining kind of on this venture, always kind of on an angle, comboing so well with this type of gameplay that it just felt like every fight, Lotus Rising had the idea of where Fruit Salad were pushing from and how to time the engage on them so that you were almost always kind of having that first pick. Even though, you know, and a couple of picks go in the way of Fruit Salad, but again, it's just like this positioning from Lotus Rising just looked really, really good.
Yeah, they just seemed in such incredible control of any escape route that Fruit Salad had ready. There was just nowhere for them to run. By the time you're getting pressured down from Stelbell on the front line, you unfortunately have a Venture and a Tracer just devouring you as you're trying to get back to spawn or get back to the rest of your team. There's no real chance for anyone to escape here, and whether it's Mafia going down first or even Lyran or Hostile, like there was no, you know, real one weak point here on the side of Fruit Salad. It just felt that Lotus Rising were able to sort of master that tempo that, I mean, up till now, we've kind of seen Fruit Salad be kind of the masters of. But Fruit Salad are able to sort of bend it to their own will here. With this composition, without that Lucio, you know, that sort of tempo able to speed you in, speed you out of engages, that sound barrier, which Mafia is often so clutch with. Yeah, without that clutch potential, I mean, Lotus Rising just kind of walked all over it. That was not a close push there. The bot was really never in Fruit Salad's control, apart from a few meters gained early on there.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point, right? Not having the Lucio, especially on a team where we said that Fruit Salad has basically been running this Lucio the whole season long. So you get very used to kind of having that type of play style, right? You're used to having the speed to engage and to disengage from fights. And I think that moving over onto like this, you know, we saw a couple of different backlines kind of coming out from Fruit Salad, but ultimately you didn't really have a team kind of aura healing, aura speed. The Juno didn't work out quite well, and it is because we had that D.Va, we had that Tracer, we had the Venture. Unfortunately, Juno's just not able to kind of stay alive through that. So moving on to our fourth map, which Fruit Salad does get to pick, and is going King's Row. And Lucio going to be back in the mix here for Fruit Salad, so we'll have to see if they feel a little bit more comfortable this.
Yeah, certainly can breathe a sigh of relief getting Lucio back into their hands here, but honestly, they have to play this so carefully. They are down 2-1 in a series here. This is do or die, truly, at the very end of it. They have to play this so carefully, so consciously. We got to see them just a few days ago running a Lucio Reinhardt comp here on King's Row. I would be surprised if they felt that good about how they are running things right now, but again, maybe that's just the pocket strat they need to sort of set Lotus Rising off balance here, because right now, it looks as though Lotus Rising can kind of deal with anything. I mean, both Atlas and Esperanza were not that close of maps. Fruit Salad did take the first one of the series in 2-0 fashion here, but yeah, I really need to see them come back in a major way, and I think they do too. And hopefully, on the back of these bans, they'll be able to do so.
Okay, the May ban coming out for Lotus Rising here. That makes sense to me. We definitely have seen Fruit Salad kind of run this May, especially on King's Row, and really nice choke points to work with. But Fruit Salad banning out the Kiriko here, very interesting. We've been saying, they Fruit Salad has been running this kind of Kiriko Lucio backline, but typically when we see the Kiriko ban come out, I'm anticipating that we are going to see some Ana here. So hoping to probably get some big anti-nades here for Fruit.
Yeah, some Ana or even some BAP, honestly, with the way that they are able to
Yep.
sort of run on the defense there. Especially if you want to try and make some high ground potential work. I mean, both Ana and BAP are really solid for that. Whether you want to run the Ashe on defense or even perhaps the sneaky Widow pick, as sometimes plays on offense, of course, it can be so risky on defense just because if it does not go well, you need to run all the way back to spawn or die quickly in order to get back into it. And by that point, I mean, the first point on King's Row can just be such a instant collapse, or it can last until the very end in overtime. It is really either feast or famine with this one here. Right now, it looks like we are hovering this on Lucia, so points for Rain, calling this one out so far. Yeah, very much seems to be the name of the game here. Banana Milk wants to get set up at these incredible sight lines, land some Bionades, land some sleeps here. But with Vaporin and Tiny Shiny here on this potential Widow Pharah, maybe just for picks, just to peek out. But still, if these are allowed to be unleashed, there's very little to stop them.
Yeah, hostile on this Reaper it's gonna be a tough kind of run into this. Stelbell is gonna swap over onto the Wrecking Ball, which again doesn't really bode well for this Reaper. But if you can do enough poke damage kind of coming in, then you're gonna be able to at least force some of these cooldowns out, as Tiny Shiny is gonna swap over onto the Venture Snow, still on this Mercy. No, it's just gonna be a little bit of damage boost, but it looks like Vaporin is sticking on this Widowmaker.
Yeah, I mean, just landing a bunch of shots directly onto Fuzzy Doe, building up to our third of that ultimate already here. Has to play carefully, though. Is taking a good bit of damage in return as Lyran is able to pump out a bunch with this Sojourn. So much consistent damage, especially at close range between the Reaper and the Sojourn here. So that's something that Lotus Rising have to be careful of. Of course, with a tank that can roll all around like Wrecking Ball, you're not as worried about fighting it close on the front line like this. Fuzzy Doe, I mean, you just have such a hard time on this Sigma against the enormous chaos that can be caused by a Venture and a Wrecking Ball. Thus saying that Tiny Shiny does get taken down. Finished off by Fuzzy Doe here, but Queen Bee is there to clean up Hostile, who looked to try and get a kill on the backline. Not able to do so. Wooyoung, as you were saying earlier, just so devastating. Could put in so much damage with those water orbs there. Mothia trying their very best to keep the rest of Fruit Salad alive here on the objective, and Fuzzy Doe is able to get the kill onto Vaporin. Not exactly sure where the Widow wanted to find themselves, but certainly not at the receiving end of some Hyperspheres there. Stelbell, though, does clean up Lyran. No chance for that Sojourn rail, that pick potential, that one-shot chance. No more for a few seconds longer here. Bionade lands through out a Tiny Shiny, just manages to get away with her life here, and Stelbell is rolling forward. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of matchup you end up seeing at the end of the day onto the Sigma. Just having such a rough time. Fuzzy Doe about to have this ult. I mean, I think she'll stick with it just to get the ult, but you may want to swap soon enough.
Yeah, it's just really hard. You don't really have anything that's going to be able to shut down this Wrecking Ball, save for Banana Milk heading asleep. I don't know if Fruit Salad has like a Cassidy or something in their pool, but Stelbell's just running rampant right now.
Just aerial bombing campaigns, just over the entire area of Point B. No real chance for them to stay alive here. The beat, the Tidal Blast does come through, lands onto Tiny Shiny, just able to keep her alive and do so much damage, knowing she has Tectonic Shock ready to go at any moment here. But Stelbell is cleaning up the members of Fruit Salad so fast, there's no chance and no need at all for that Venture to let loose with the Tectonic Shock. Vaporin cleaning up the remaining members of Fruit Salad. Lotus Rising, I mean, they're looking comfy on this offense.
Oh, yeah, again, I mean, they're running this, like, composition that they basically have been running with, right? They found their footing with it. You swap the Diva in for the Wrecking Ball, and then you're basically good to go. Now both DPS ultimates ready to go. Pulse Bomb! Yeah, just gonna find a target. The beat is now gone for Fruit Salad.
I mean, that was their one chance of really holding on at any sort of duration for this fight here. You do have the DPS ultimates, but if they are caught out on their own, there's no beat to save them for a little bit longer. Of course, Mafia will get back into the fight pretty quick here. Lucio is one of our speediest heroes, naturally. But yeah, you really want to find a nice grouped up pick for both of these ultimates here. And Lotus Rising, I mean, they're going to be playing anything but grouped up here. They're all running all over the map here. And Lyran, finding the high ground, unfortunately finds Tiny Shiny waiting for them. Gets taken out immediately, still has the Tectonic Shock ready to go. Might not even need it as these fights drag on longer and longer here. That sort of verve we saw from Fruit Salad where they really committed the longer these fights went on has kind of been working against them here, as Lotus Rising has really been putting on an absolute clinic in terms of outlasting their opponents, just diving away and finding a different avenue of attack here. Tiny Shiny goes down low, but is able to find the finish onto Fuzzy Dough. Fruit Salad are falling down one by one here. They really might have wanted to switch their composition, but it almost feels like it's too late at this point.
Yeah, right? I mean, you don't have any ults just yet. Okay, I like Lyran moving over onto the Tracer here. The Sojourn, it's really hard. Okay, Cassidy. Oh, I like this even better. Let's go, Lyran. Very, very nice pick. Somebody has to be able to kind of put a little bit of pressure onto these flankers, right? This stun from the Cassidy as well gonna really, really help. But Delbell, I mean, you gotta find her first.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Rain. Pressure onto the flankers is the name of the game here for Fruit Salad. There's just been nothing at all to keep Lotus Rising in check here until now, that is. So this is exactly the kind of moment that Fruit Salad has been waiting for. The Sigma has kind of boomeranged back around into being useful here on point C, where you've got these walls, you've got these, you know, all this cover to work around. You do have these narrow choke points where you know there's only so many places that Stelbell can roll into you. Does get stunned up. Yes, this is exactly where Fruit Salad wants to be playing from. The question is it too little too late here, as we are already into point C? There's still 3 minutes left to go in the time bank for Lotus Rising's offense, but Lyran finding Tiny Shiny out early in this one. That's a good start to this engagement here. Tidal Blast on Queen Bee used on herself is able to push forward just a bit here. Tried to get a knockdown on the members of Fruit Salad, but they are getting away for just the moment here. Stelbell, however, finds the finish onto Hostiles. Mafia cleans Vagrant out as well. Really looking at each other here. These Cassidys are having to play a bit more carefully with just so much tempo being provided here by these Lucios. Both Snow and Mafia are playing around their tanks to great effect here, trying to speed Fuzzy Dough in and around these engagements here, which is not terribly easy. Of course, as slow as Sigma moves, and Stelbell is still running rampant here on all members of Fruit Salad. Lyran falls dangerously low. It's getting found out. The beat comes through just in time to save Lyran's life as Banana Milk finds that anti-nade kill onto Tiny Shiny, and it looks like Fruit Salad are finally finding themselves a holding pattern.
Oh, Rex, you said it. Like, Mafia has just been so clutch with these beats. Just, like, last second, keeping the DPS alive. Really, really tough stuff to do. And now, Fruit Salad, I mean, name of the game is just get time off the clock here. You're going to have both DPS ults. Fuzzy Dough building up to this flux as well. And now we were talking about how it's kind of hard for the Sigma to necessarily find value on the other points. But now that there's a very, telegraphed pathing, it's going to be a little bit easier to try and get this ultimate off.
Yeah, still Stelbell dropping in with so much damage. Yeah, it does get that kill. Those mines coming out are just absolutely devastating. Drop from a height like that, especially in these narrow corridors that you find yourself in, especially for point C here. King's Row is such a wrecking ball playground here. You don't see it as often as some of your mainstays, but Stelbell is piling it to enormous effect here for Lotus Rising. Tiny Shiny is able to clean up 3 kills in the back end of this fight here as Fruit Salad are heading for the hills. Fuzzy Dough dips back into spawn to heal up, and they are just meters away from full completion of this map here. About to have a little bit more than a minute left, but Fruit Salad have one last attempt at cleaning up this fight. Unfortunately, as the grab goes up, the Sigma falls down. Fuzzy Dough getting taken out early on here, and Tiny Shiny cleaning up the last remaining dregs of Fruit Salad. Lotus Rising, with over a minute, crucially, in the time bank, finish King's Row, looking dominant all the way through.
Oh, I saw Tiny Shiny at 1 HP there. Actual 1. Really good job from the supports of Lotus Rising to keep her up so that she can use this this Tectonic Shock to excellent effect. Now, there is one person on the side of Lotus Rising that has not died. Stelbell, of course, on this tank. I mean, we mentioned it earlier on Atlas, but she is just so good at getting out of fight. She's very, very aware of how much HP she has, which is so important when you're playing these kind of get in, get out tanks. And that is definitely causing a whole lot of grief for Fruit Salad. I like the adjustments that Fruit Salad made there, moving Lyran over onto the Cassidy. Looks a lot better. And I think really did give Lotus Rising a lot of trouble, even forcing Faker in to swap over onto the Cassidy as well. But now on the defense, Lotus Rising going to be running a little bit of Lucio Ana of their own. Now, crucially, when you're running this Lucio Ana and you're running the Tracer Venture with it, there's not a lot of peel, right? This is a lot of pressure on Snow to make sure that Queen Bee kind of stays alive through this. And where Fruit Salad has been running this kind of poke composition, it's going to be a little bit tricky, I think, on this Ana to kind of really find the value, because not only are you dealing with these Sigma shields that are going to be blocking your anti-nades, but there's also going to be a lot of kind of long-range damage that's coming in at you. And, you know, with the Wrecking Ball, not really going to be able to block a whole lot of that. Yeah, we're going to have to see what Snow can get done on this Lucio.
Oh my god, Vaker just evaporates Lyran there. Of course, on the back of the rest of the team, as everyone gets popped up by Stelbell, and everyone else just immediately just eviscerates the remaining members of Fruit Salad here. All you have is Banana Milk left alive in spawn, waiting for the team to come back. Blink and you miss it. The first fight done and dusted before we can even, call the gates to open here. Lotus Rising just are immediately set up. Like, Queen Bee is the only stationary target here, and the rest of, yes, you have to know exactly where Stelbell is here. Able to get that sleep and the anti. All right. That is perfect from Fruit Salad. That is exactly the engagement you need. Got a little bit overconfident there with that Wrecking Ball. You know what you're looking for here. Banana Milk is able to get that clean finish there, as Fuzzy Dough is still here on the Sigma. They want to make this poke composition work here. But having Hostile and Lyran here, this Reaper Cassidy, I like this duo for the DPS line.
Ooh, yeah, okay. Gonna take down Snow as well. So now it's gonna be Queen Bee just trying to keep everybody up. I mean, takes down Banana Milk, so it's a nice trade on both sides here. And Lotus Rising looking like they're gonna come out on top.
Yeah, and Fruit Salad had to have known they were going to get a re-engage out of Lotus Rising there, but they just sat on the high ground and didn't have to worry at all, because Fruit Salad, there's really no chance for more than half of their roster to make it to the high ground, and anything Hostile does is going to be so telegraphed to even get there in the first place. So Lotus Rising are able to get back into this one so fast with only one tick gain for Fruit Salad.
Yeah, and I mean, Queen Bee put in so much work. Did you have the Nano here for Lotus to work with? Stelbell going to be able to get up to these mines again. It's another Sleep Dart that connects onto Stelbell, but it's not everybody that's there. Okay, they are able to take down Stelbell first again. That's another tick coming the way of Fruit Salad here.
Turns out the answer to Stelbell is just to immediately dump all of your CC onto the Wrecking Ball and just pray and hope that it stays dead for a few seconds longer. Who is, by the way, built up to almost towards Minefield already here, despite being dead early on in 2 of these engagements, is now back in the fight as well. Lands directly on top of it, gets nanoed as well. They just know their win condition is Stelbell, and are playing just perfectly around this tank here. Everyone from Fruit Salad is already trying to run back to spawn doors. You got Fuzzy Dough here on the objective, and Hostile just being booped around to Kingdom Come. Does fall dangerously low. Yeah, finally gets taken down here. But Snow also, it just unfortunately it's not enough here. And another tick, as you mentioned, Rain, is to be had for Fruit Salad, but they do not quite make it all the way. And we're down to about a minute left on their approach.
It feels like every fight that Fruit Salad is winning is really just kind of capitalizing on a mistake from Lotus Rising, not necessarily kind of making their own play. But now you have 4 ults to work with if you're Fruit Salad. The mines, though, from Stelbell have been very, very impactful so far, and she's going to go ahead and start with that.
Yep, there it is, all over the objective here. Fuzzy Dough's probably hoping she can stay in the air a bit longer here. Does not land on the mines. You love to see it. The Deadeye through onto Lyran. All right, they know the win condition is to just clean up the tank as quickly as possible. There, excellent synergy play out from Fruit Salad. Nano onto Hostile just to make sure this fight is well and truly over here. And with that, they will take point A. They will unlock the payload. They are not out of this one just yet.
I like the adjustment here from Fruit Salad, honestly. Stelbell's probably going to have just a miserable time now, but Fruit Salad have really found out what they need to do, right? You need to kind of hit these cooldowns. Not only do you have the Sleep Dart, you have the Accretion, and you have the Hinder from the Cassidy. So trying to like shut down Stelbell here is allowing Lyran on this Cassidy to have a whole lot more space to work with, and they're showing that they will absolutely be able to hit their shots. They just need to have the space.
Yeah, they know the play lines, they know the engagement routes here. Banana Milk is baiting the members of Lotus Rising in, thus get taken down, though. Unfortunately, the bait was taken perhaps a bit further than Fruit Salad might have liked, but Hostile is able to clean up 2 kills. The back end of that does go for the Death Blossom on the high ground, gets booped away, though. Not able to clean up anyone else at the very end of it. Mafia does have this beat, but as I say, that Tiny Shiny is there with the Tectonic Shock. Ooh, that rock just unfortunately hitting the edge of the wall there. Might have been an excellent value, but no chance for it to really get anything you want out of it at the end of the day. Stelbell's still alive and rolling over Hostile's face. Lotus Rising are looking like they're holding strong on this defense, but Fuzzy Dough still has the card, still pushing forward here. And the rest of Fruit Salad are close behind. Not looking too bad for them.
And it's big for Mafia to be able to hold on to this beat because Snow does have the beat as well. So now we're looking at which Lucio is going to kind of have that better beat, try to get it second, but, you know, down your Ana already, I mean, you're forced to use the beat first.
Yeah, the second you don't have those CCs or they just do not come off in the exact right order there, Stelbell is able to capitalize on any hint of a mistake coming out from Fruit Salad here. Lyron, however, is still present. It's still doing so much work. Unfortunately, the sleep comes through onto Fuzzy Dough mid-flux. No value gained whatsoever from the Sigma. Oh, you hate to love to see it, and Tiny Shiny is there to clean up the remaining members of Fruit Salad. Lotus Rising, I mean, they've taken the fight back in their own power here. Their fate is in their hands. They're down to a minute here on Fruit Salad's offense, and if they do not make this, if they don't cap here just to get into point C, that's the end of the series, that's the end of the season.
Yeah, right? Fruit Salad need to be able to withstand this next engagement from Lotus Rising, and it's going to be so hard. 4 ultimates here from Lotus Rising. I mean, you just have the Deadeye from Lyron to work with. If you play slow, you can maybe get this Blossom, but Hostile just hasn't really been able to find a lot of value with it.
Mafia dead immediately means this fight is done. Well and truly over before it can begin. 1 ult, 2 ults spent already for Lotus Rising. All right, for Fruit Salad, you might be counting your lucky stars here. The more they spend now, you've got one more chance at an engagement here. You're gonna have to hold the door here for Lotus Rising. They are not really built around that, compositionally speaking, so in theory, you're gonna get to touch the payload, but it's going to be a near thing, certainly in overtime.
Yeah, and that nano from Queen Bee on a Tiny Shiny actually did allow Tiny Shiny to basically build up to a Tectonic Shock. She got hit with that Sleep Dart, but seems to be alive, at least for the time being. Right now, Fruit Salad just cannot lose anyone. You'd love to find the opening pick, but crucially, you just need to stay alive.
They can smell blood in the water. The sleep coming out early onto Fuzzy Dough. The anti as well. There is no tank alive for Lotus Rising. Despite the heroics out from Hostile, that Death Blossom is looking pretty limp in the shade here. Everyone from Lotus Rising is alive and kicking on the objective. The minefields from above yet again. It is Stelbell, the tank, leading them to victory, but it is a team effort and no mistake. Lotus Rising, despite going down in the first map of the series, put on an absolute clinic in the latter half, really showing up their opposition here. And a dominant Fruit Salad who's been on such a tear through this lower bracket falls down before team they sent down here in the first place.
Riot, what a comeback from Lotus Rising. They were only able to take 1 map off of Fruit Salad the last time these teams faced off in the playoffs, but wow, what a beautiful adjustment. I think that Lotus Rising have really locked down this kind of dive composition, right? They weren't really forced into a spot where they really had to kind of match the brawl, and I think that worked out fantastic for them. You play the Wrecking Ball, you play the Diva, and you just build the compositions kind of around Stelbell on this tank that just looked absolutely phenomenal. So really well done from Lotus Rising. It's so unfortunate for Fruit Salad that they won't be able to kind of continue through, but a valiant effort to make it this far in the game.
Yeah, of course, well done and an excellent season to Fruit Salad to make it this far and to do it in such, glorious fashion. Well done all the way through. Just unfortunately, like you said, Rain, just a little bit outplayed, a little bit outfought here by Lotus Rising, who seemed at every turn to have an answer. After that first map, that was the downloading phase. You know, they sort of had a notion of what Fruit Salad were running. They got it in their sights. They sent it back to the lab, and they figured it out. They knew exactly what they needed to make it work. But whether it was on the Wrecking Ball or the Diva, which, I mean, we've seen Fuzzy Dough power through opposing Divas before. This play out from Stelbell and the rest of the team, of course, around her was on another level. Just able to answer that Orisa at every single turn. You know, forcing Fruit Salad to play these compositions they didn't seem to feel as comfortable on here. They certainly didn't look horrible on the Sigma, but it clearly was not their favorite pick. And just the laps that Stelbell is able to run, of course. Looking at how the bracket has shaken out with the results of this one here, we can now tell you, folks, the losers final here is going to be between Sakura Mochi and Lotus Rising. And now that one, I mean, if this was between two Titans, we certainly have another of these between us here.
Oh my goodness, I know that losers final is going to be so stressful to watch, and then to have Dreamlight Academy waiting at that grand final for either Sakura Mochi or Lotus Rising. I mean, these top three teams, I absolutely see why they are here, and it's going to be so exciting to see which one of these from the lower finals can get to move on to that grand finals. But unfortunately, we will have to wait just a little bit longer.
Just a bit, folks, but for the rest of it, that is going to do for tonight's stream. Thank you for joining us for this match, and what a fantastic show it was the entire way through. Congratulations to Lotus Rising, and again to Fruit Salad. We'll see you next season. No need to worry about that. It comes around before you know it. Well played, and we can't wait to see them in the losers final. You do not want to miss it. See you next time.